There it is. There it is. We are back. Good morning, LinkedIn community. Good morning, Nudelberg Daily Huddle. It's Wednesday. It's the midweek push, and we're back and ready to get after it. And we are celebrating sort of this morning because South Florida got half of the week.
I read an article the other day, I think it was on LinkedIn, that said the new favorite day of the week is Wednesday. That it used to be the worst, but now it has been voted as the #1 day people look forward to because it pushes them to the end of the week. I was very surprised to see it, but I knew I would bring it to the Wednesday huddle.
Interesting. I'd like to get some information behind that, like people's why behind that.
Yeah,
like
I disagreed with it, so I just kind of moved on. It was one of those
It's kind of what you do with things that you read and you disagree with. You just throw it out.
It's not a generalization. This one particular thing I wasn't buying. So,
oh man, good morning to everybody as they roll in. Appreciate everybody commenting. Good morning, and special good morning to you guys. Good morning to D. Robinson. Sorry about your Celtics loss last night, but the Heat got themselves a great victory. We've got some great content coming up today. We're going to talk about the power of social media and how TikTok is impacting the spiritual world. And we're going to talk about a post that we've been trying to get to over and over and over. Adam Grant had put out something early this year coming out of 2021 of 21 things to rethink. And we're going to bring up some of those topics and we're going to talk about some of that. But before we do, let's get to some wake-up music.
Wake up, everybody! Get up! Get up! Get up! Get up! Wake up! Come on! Come on! Wake up, everybody! Teach a new way. Maybe then they'll listen what you have to say. Come on now.
So, I would hope that that we are big proponents of social media as a driver for business development, but really just for you personally, right? The way social media can impact your life as far as bringing in new relationships, creating new opportunities, and offering you the opportunity to create attention and awareness for who you are and what you do. That is the driver behind why we teach people to use social media. Well, there's a story in the news. And look, I'm not on TikTok, right? And after watching this news story, I was kind of like, I got to get on TikTok. And then I went down this whole spiral of we got to get the huddle on TikTok.
Right.
Do we cut up the videos? How do we do that?
Do we start doing themed TikToks, with huddle content and business content? Not that I'm giving anybody ideas, but
so you wanna introduce the new segment and then kick it off?
Yeah. So let's kick it off with some huddle headline music first to get us in the mood.
I like it. I got to tell you, when I hear that music, I don't know anybody who's ever seen the show Newsroom, which was absolutely fantastic on HBO. I feel like I'm in Newsroom. I feel like we're now coming back to the news
segment and your chair turning, right?
I feel like we have important things to share with people. Let's see how they feel about it.
Well, look, this is news. Let's take it to the
great headline.
Let's take it to the news report first, and then we'll talk about more after.
Now we turn to the TikTok nuns, who are taking the app by storm with their wholesome videos. The Daughters of St. Paul in Boston have racked up over 6 million views on videos of trending TikTok challenges. Let's go to female editor Charlie Langston in our New York newsroom with more on this one. Charlie, I'm a child of Catholic schools growing up. I never had nuns like this. They are doing challenges, and they're making it a little more holy, I'd say.
Well, Thomas, I'm sure a lot of people out there have seen the this or that challenge on TikTok. Well, these nuns are putting their own spin on it by offering preferences on things like evening prayer or morning prayer, Advent or Lent, and they're even addressing dress code with a blue sweater or black sweater option. Sister Bethany Davis, aka the Media Nun, explained that TikTok is a great way for them to share their message, saying, "Our mission in the church is to bring Jesus to the world by using the most modern and efficacious forms of media." I gotta say though, it looks like they're having a ball while they're doing that. For example, this ghost photo shoot where they posed in sunglasses and sheets, genius.
Such a great story, a 2021 exclusive kind of story for sure. These nuns racking up over 45,000 followers. Now, you can check them out yourself. Their handle, Daughters of St. Paul. Charlie Langston.
So, unbelievable story. I think, first of all, the first thing I took away out of there was there's a nun called the Media Nun. Which, like, shout out to her because she's obviously the one who's pushing the envelope with them. But here's just another example of the world changes, right? And who knows how the other nuns are probably looking at her. Who knows how some of the priests and fathers are looking at them. But what are they doing? They're building unbelievable attention, or they're getting unbelievable attention in order to build awareness for what they're passionate about. The thing that makes them go, which is unbelievable because for them, it's about spreading the gospel. It's about spreading the word of Jesus. And they found an innovative way to do that. Good for them.
To educate your audience about who you are and what you do. There's a stat here, 87% of Christian women and men committed to a religious life were 60 and older. And their goal is to now attack people, or not attack is not the right word, but educate the younger audiences about what it's like to be a nun. They use the quote, "We're not all grim old ladies reading the Bibles," and it was cool because they talked about some of their back life. Like they were in a band when they grew up. They had done all these things and it didn't take away from their religious life, and so they were trying to marry the two, build their personal brands. And it's cool because I didn't know nuns even acted like that,
Right.
know? So it's this education piece about there's so many different jobs and professions that come with stereotypes about how they are, what the person is like. And so doing your best to educate what you do and who you are to kind of differentiate yourself from everyone else is really important.
I think that's the best part, is that they're recognizing the way people want to be communicated to, and then figuring out how to fit their message into that communication. I think that's a huge part of sales. That's a huge part of leadership. It's not about how I want to get my message to you. It's about how you need to receive my message. I don't care whether you're dealing with people on your team or you're dealing with a prospect. If you're looking at it through a lens of, well, it's about what I want to deliver to them, you've already lost them and the opportunity. But if you flip that on its head and say, no, let me figure out how they can receive it or what they want from this, and you make it about them, which is exactly what they're doing. Saying, okay, how do we communicate with a new audience? What is it that they do that they like? Okay, they like these dances. Great. Let's figure out a way to make the dance fit into our dress code as nuns. Let's make it about how we choose to pray during the day. Awesome.
You said something really interesting, and I think it's fitting it to also your system, to
Right.
your process and staying true to yourself. And there's so many different avenues and ways to communicate, and fitting it into your culture, fitting it into your process, and knowing where it should fit, that it makes you feel comfortable to do it every day and it holds up your brand.
The number one objection that we get when we start working with people about building personal brand is, well, I don't want to be a self-promoter, right? I don't want to be talking about me all of the time. And that's the best part, is that you shouldn't, right? The idea behind your content should be, it should fall into two silos. It should be educational or it should be entertaining. And if most of your content is saying I, similar to your outreach or similar to your communications with your team, if everything you're talking about is I, then you're making it about you. Stop making it about you and start making it about what everybody else can receive through the message. Make it about them. And that should be the theory behind your social media strategy or your personal brand strategy, which is what these nuns are doing an unbelievable job at.
And it comes back and it will lead us to the next segment, but being willing to rethink. Don't be stuck in your ways. If nuns can change, you can change. Let's get to some motivational music and then we'll get back to our content.
And your heartbeat, it lets me know you feel the same. I can hold you, keep you safe until you fall asleep. Never worried, 'cause I can give you what you need. Now everything I do is all for loving you. It's not something that we're used to. No other way to say I need you every day. And now I'm gonna change my ways. And it's a part of you I never wanna lose. I'll do anything you want me to. Like any other day, I know I'll find a way. And if ever I'm alone, you'll say I'll be thinking about you. 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 I'll be thinking about you.
Boom. And shout out to Michelle, who comes in with a comment. Their message didn't change. They just changed how they get it out there. Exactly correct. They are who they are. The church is, and we had a great service this past Sunday. And our Father Bob is a unbelievable educator when he comes, when he talks about that. But he talked about, service is not serve us, and he drew the parallels between, when we talk about service within the church or we talk about service within the community, it's not about serving ourselves, right? You're not paying your tithe to buy a ticket to the show. You're paying your tithe because that's part of your activation and engagement with the network and with your community and with the church and so on and so on. So you can take that philosophy of it's not serve us, right? But it's service, and it should be about the external things that you're doing. And that's what service really is.
You do a great job of pulling, which I think we all should. There's so much information, and information is attainable for everybody. You do such a great job of digesting it and regurgitating it and applying it to your life and applying it to this huddle. So we're thankful for that. But finally, after probably about 2 weeks of us writing this on the huddle, we are going to get to 21 things to rethink. And the list is great. So do you want to kick it off? Do you have the list?
Of course I have the list. I've got all 21 in front of me, but I was going to open it up to you to pick one, and then we can start talking about that, or I can, whichever way you want to go.
I'm going to start with this one only because we touched on it in the beginning, but disagreement. It was the first thing I said, so we'll start there. They say the clearest sign of intellectual chemistry isn't agreeing with someone, it's enjoying your disagreements with them.
So I think this is really important because for growth and for being able to push yourself to continue to grow, we talk about the 1% mentality. If you surround yourself with people who only agree with what you say all the time, you're not growing, right? And that's where we kind of talk about ego versus confidence. All that does is feed the ego. All that does is feed the fact that you think you know everything all the time and that you're right all the time. So the real marker for being able to have a great relationship or have a relationship that pushes you forward is being able to enjoy the disagreements with someone, whether that be your wife, whether that be your family, whether that be your best friend, whether that be your coworkers. If you're not able to enjoy disagreeing, if you can't have a conversation where both people are able to offer differing points of views and you enjoy the dialogue back and forth and it's fed with questions and more learning, you are not in the right kind of disagreements.
And I'll ask you, how do you deal with someone that you eventually just will never get agreement with?
You remove them.
Right.
You remove them. Like that to me is, if you are in a situation where you're like, there's nothing that's ever going to change here. And that's where I was at really in my last stop in football at Lafayette College, right? I was working with the head coach, and I had in my mind gotten to a place where there's nothing that I can do to change what he believes or change the way he operates, or there's nothing I can do to help us anymore. And once you're in that position, you either need to be removed or you should remove yourself from it, because you're only going to create more angst and anguish for yourself the longer you go with that.
It's unreal. We'll move on. I'm going to keep going down the list, and I'll pick them, and then you kind of talk about them. So I'm going to go just being honest. On the quote, "I'm just being honest" is a poor excuse for being rude.
I'll give a shout out to Dad here, right? Dad's always like, when somebody says honestly, when you ask somebody a question, they're like, honestly, and why would you ever say that, right? And the idea behind saying honestly is that you would be dishonest at some point. Right. So that's not a great word to use. And so when you preface what you say with just being honest, that means that you're giving yourself the right to be rude or to be disrespectful, which is never the case. Right. Regardless of what your views may be, regardless of what disagreements you may have, it doesn't give you the out to not speak respectfully. And so when you're in a disagreement within the workplace, when you're in a disagreement with a prospect, right, when you're going back and forth and something happens and there's a miscommunication or whatever it is, when you lead with, well, I'm just being honest, that doesn't excuse the fact that you were an asshole first, right? Making an excuse for the way that you offer information is never okay. You should, regardless of how you feel about what's being said, you have to make sure that you communicate it in a way that the other person can receive it. And
it says being direct with your content of your feedback doesn't prevent you from being, thoughtful about the best way to deliver.
Radical candor, right? Like, I think it's so important in leadership to be candid about what we say. If I don't set clear expectations for you, then I'm not doing my job and having ownership of your development. But if I set clear expectations and I speak very clearly and direct to what you're doing, what you're not doing, what the expectation is, whatever, I don't have to do that in a mean way. Right. I can do that by thinking about what you need and how you need to receive it and being empathetic to the way it might make you feel. Right?
Get there, right. All right. Number 3, work experience. In hiring, it might be time to get rid of experience requirements. Data. Past experience rarely predicts future performance. What matters is past performance and current motivation and ability.
Amen. Amen. Like, to me, especially in this world where you're going to have people who buck the college system and decide to just go do something for themselves, or have different motivations on why they want to be involved. You could be the greatest CEO for the past 30 years. If you are not in a technologically first mindset, or you aren't thinking forward about what's happening, you're probably not going to be the right CEO hire for a new organization, because they have to be in that mindset. So even though you've got 40 years of doing the job, it doesn't make you the right fit for this job at this time. It's really all about, what's your philosophy now? Why do you want this job? What are the motivators that make, and this to me is like the future of work, right? We talked about kind of people becoming strictly 1099s, right? And organizations not W-2ing employees, because if I want to own my ability and my skill sets, I don't want you to own me as an organization. I want you to rent me. I want you to pay me for the work that gets done, because that's why I'm here. I'm not here for the security. I'm not here for I'm just here to clock in and clock out for the next 30 years. I'm here to do the work. Tell me what the work is. I'll sign up to do the work. You start hiring people like that, I guarantee you find yourself a high-performing organization.
Yeah, it's wild, because I don't know. It's hard. I'm total jumbled right now.
No, go ahead. But work through it. Because I want to get your mindset of like
I had no experience when I came into the football world, but I was really energetic and willing to do everything I was asked of and willing to learn. And I skyrocketed past people, not because I was probably better than them. They probably had similar skills, but what separated me was my willingness to do it and other external factors.
Well, it takes us back to the conversation from yesterday, which was you were passionate about it.
Right.
Right? Like show me interviews with people who've got 40 years of experience and no experience, and somebody who's passionate about doing the work and somebody who's not. I'm going to take the person who's passionate about it, because most things can be trained. Most skills can be trained. You can't train passion. I can't train you to be passionate. You're either going to do that or you're not. You either understand the mindset, and we can develop a mindset that helps feed your passion. But if you don't like, or you're not passionate about what the job is going to be, you're never going to end up having the same success as somebody
who's just as passionate. Thank you for helping me get to the point.
Yeah.
As I look for the next one. But I think this one's really important to talk about, and it's mental health. We've obviously talked about it a bunch, but I think there's still a stigma surrounded by mental health. You see it in sports, you see it in cultures, business cultures, women, men. It affects.
Two thoughts here on this is, number one, we're not sympathetic enough, we're not empathetic enough, we're not understanding enough of what people go through who have mental health issues. And that doesn't mean being crazy, right? Like, I think people are like, oh, mental health means you're bipolar, or mental health means you have depression. Not really, right? There are degrees, there's a spectrum, and mental health can be anywhere from poor mental health, meaning that you do have some disorders, to really positive and strong mental health, meaning that you are doing things that feed your mindset every single day. And then you could be in the middle. Lack of disorder doesn't mean you have mental health, right? Like, having mental health means that you understand how to create barriers for yourself. You understand how to align your priorities and how to do things that feed you as an individual, that keep your mind strong, whether that be working out, whether that be eating right, whether that be watching the content that you consume, who you spend yourself with. We've talked about all the inputs that go into the mindset. Lack of disorder doesn't mean you have positive mental health. And I think looking at it as a spectrum, and looking at it as you could be anywhere on there, and not black and white of you have mental health or you don't.
Right. And I think the society is making it okay for people to be self-aware and say what they're feeling and what is affecting them, and don't really know what might be the root cause and need help to get to the root cause. But being okay with being self-aware, knowing where you fall on that spectrum, having control, having drive, passion.
So, and I just want, before we go, because I know we're up on time, I just want to touch on Faith's comment. 1099 everyone is an interesting concept. We have a lot of learning how to pull that off successfully. Not really. I don't think so. What we don't do well as organizations, in my mind, is define what the work is, define what the outcomes are that we're looking for, and hold people accountable to that. We're so in a systematic mindset of, when I hire somebody, I hire them to show up to work from 9 to 5 and do what I ask them to do. Forget that. Break that mindset and say, I'm hiring somebody for a job. I'm hiring somebody. If I'm hiring a leader, I'm hiring them to develop the teams, develop the systems. That job may be over once they've developed those people in those systems, and there might not be a reason to extend their contract. But if we start looking at our businesses as everybody's an independent contractor, everybody gets hired to do their job, as long as we've clearly defined what that job is, I think we can get there.
Well, you might write about that in your next book.
Excellent. Thank you guys for a fantastic Wednesday. Use some social media to build some awareness, educate, and entertain. Think of some more things to rethink and be challenging yourself mentally. Jake, excellent job. Great show. Looking forward to tomorrow.
And the best news is we'll be back tomorrow at the same time. But in the meantime,
let's get down to business.
Please don't worry about me. I'm about to let my heart speak. My friends keep telling me to leave this. So let's get down to business. Let's get down to business. Give you one more night.